our ever-changing world. And thanks so much to Cathy and Marcy for doing a great job. We had a good time last Saturday, and there's going to be a couple of practicum sessions to follow these, which we will tell you about as we continue. And I don't know. Thanks, everyone.
Well,
Meet people.
let me just say that both PineCone and Junior Appalachian Musicians are two of our favorite organizations ever. I feel like many of you know that Junior Appalachian Musicians was started long ago by our friend Helen White, just for the purpose of bringing up young people into the music that used to be the home music, and it's grown into so much and changed so many lives. Marcy and I have had the pleasure of mentoring a couple of folks who are now at Berklee College of Music and ETSU as a result of their work with Junior Appalachian Musicians. And PineCone is almost an insanely do everything nonprofit, from education to performance to teacher outreach to community outreach. I mean, it's just really amazing. So we just feel lucky to be able to be here. Not unlike many of you, we had to turn on a dime this year in changing what we do. Zoom was the furthest thing from my mind. We've got friends who've been teaching on it for years who've been saying, hey, you ought to do this. I'm like, no, I want to see the people. I want to sit there. I want to help them figure out where their hands go. But, we can't do that now. And so just like everybody else, we became old dogs who had to learn new tricks. And before we go further, because we have this nice, tight, small group, if in 30 seconds you could just tell us who you are, who you teach. Some of you are jam instructors, some of you do other teaching. And before we even do that, just give us a hands up if you have already used Zoom some. All but one, is that right? Jim, you haven't used it yet?
That's right.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll just call out a name, because my understanding about Zoom is the way our screen looks may not be the way your screen looks. Keep it real short, but that gives us a chance to all get to know each other. Bob.
There we go. Okay. Bob Townsend, I'm in Grundy County, Tennessee. We started a jam group a year ago. So we had just really completed one good semester, and then of course we're hit with COVID, and we haven't done anything since. All our kids are, just absolute rank beginners. And I just didn't see a way to do that over Zoom.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's important info for us. Brandon.
Hi, I'm Brandon Johnson. As you can see, I work for the Blue Ridge National Heritage Area, and we do the Blue Ridge Music Trails and Blue Ridge Craft Trails. Hello to some good friends here. I've taught English and Appalachian Studies at the university level, and I've taught in a jam program at Madison County with Laura Boosinger. I'm not teaching actively right now, but here as a music trails person to see what I can learn and what we can share with our folks as we're trying to help people adjust to, dare I say, the new normal. I can't believe I just said that out loud, but here we are.
Here it is. Thanks. Brandon Holder.
I'm Brandon Holder, and I am the director now for the Boone Jam program with Mark Freed at the Jones House. I've taught in the program for 6 or 7 years. I have taken and taught Zoom lessons. I am not currently, but we have about 6 of our instructors who have weekly private students on there now. We made that switch back last March, I guess.
All right, welcome. We love that program. We've done a couple guest spots over there. Tom Morley.
Hi, I'm Tom Morley from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Hi, Bob. Nice to see you. I'm the author of the books Learn to Play Irish Trad Fiddle and Fiddle Club Favorites, which are used by a lot of teachers. But yeah, just like everybody else, I did everything in person and taught at camps like Strings Without Boundaries and Fiddle Hell gathering in Boston, and I had everything went online, and I had to hustle and learn what to do as well. I don't have as many students as I'd like. I love teaching group classes, which I had here in Chattanooga and in other cities where I'd have like slow sessions, Irish slow sessions, and jam sessions. And I took that to Facebook, is what I did. And on Monday nights, I just finished my 30th Monday night in a row on my own personal Facebook page, doing an hour-long jam at 6 p.m. And I've got people from all over the country tuning in and playing along as I play. So, once again, you have to hustle and figure things out.
You do. Well, great to have you here.
Great.
Thanks. And
Yeah.
Jim B.
Yes, I live in Roan Mountain, Tennessee, which is not too far from the North Carolina border. And so I'm going to be teaching fiddle in the Avery County, North Carolina jam program. And I haven't started yet. I believe I'll be starting next week or the week after.
Awesome. And then in our bottom right corner, there's our friend Deborah Van Cleef, who has been active in Local 1000 for a long time. Welcome, Deborah.
Hi, thanks. So I'm a little bit of an interloper. I'm in outside of Cleveland, Ohio, and I've been teaching guitar to beginners for 25 years and ukulele for 10, and I've taught students as young as 4 and as old as 95. I've been teaching online initially with FaceTime and now with Zoom since March, and I still miss teaching face to face, and I'm just looking to get some tips on how to do this more effectively, and especially on what to do about the fact that you can't play along in real time, or keep time for students.
Okay, well, it's great to have you all here. It sounds like we have a lot of very experienced teachers and varying different levels of Zoom experience. And so I'm going to I'm going to go a little bit backwards in some ways to say that there's a new document in addition to the Zoom tips that Jamie sent you. I also put together a document based on questions that people from this workshop emailed into Brett in advance. And a couple of those address some of the things you all have already talked about. Welcome, Carol. Nice to see you. One of them is this issue of latency and not being able to play live together. The bad news and the honest news, folks, is that we're not going to overcome this hurdle in the near future. There have been many advertised pieces of software and programming. One's an organization called JamKazam, and they put together these great demos showing you how well it works to play virtually. But I have friends with studios who have tried them out and said, that ain't it. It's a little surprising to me that in this much time in the pandemic, combating the latency in the ability to play in real time with others over the internet hasn't much happened. But at this point, I'm going to say that the few times where it happens are people who have an insane amount of high-end gear and high-end knowledge. And I'm optimistic that there's something coming out in January that'll be along those lines, but it's something where everyone's going to have to own a piece of hardware that is going to go into Ethernet in order to make it all possible. So basically, it's our job to turn these lemons into lemonade. Playing virtually together is probably not going to happen in the next 6 months. Might it happen after that? Yeah, and I'm way open to it. I hope it happens. But I'm not going to recommend that you spend your money on one of these programs that has come out so far because they really haven't been terribly successful. So yeah.
Well, I have been teaching group lessons a lot, and we have made a discovery. What I tend to do is send people rhythm tracks in advance that they're going to be playing along with. And then when I'm in class, I play, when I'm demonstrating, I'll go line by line and have people echo back to me or ask if they have a question. And then I'll play along with the rhythm tracks on my end and assume they're playing in time. But then they have the option of playing the rhythm tracks and playing along and letting me see them, letting me mute my microphone and listen to them. And this is what it sounds like. There'll be a count off. Usually I like 8 beats of a count off. See if you can hear this. This is deep in the heart of Texas. Can you hear that? Okay. I can turn it up. Deep in the heart of Texas. So that's the kind of thing I like to make to play along.
And we often make those tracks just ourselves, even on an iPhone or on your computer, where you're playing rhythm guitar, maybe with a click going on at the same time. If I'm doing it on my computer, then I'll just make the click off of my phone. It's not meant to be an incredible recording. It's meant to be a useful tool. And along with that, one of the things, because you're all experienced teachers, and we're going to get to nuts and bolts of Zoom, but I'm reversing this workshop since you all have so much experience. One of the things that Marcy and I like to do, and Jamie, if you have the ability to put this new document in the chat, that would be great. If you don't, we can do it from here. But one of the things that Marcy and I like to do is right after a lesson, sometimes before a lesson, and sometimes right after the lesson, we will record the summary of the lesson, right? Yes, you can record on Zoom. There's a little record button at the bottom of your page. And if you're the host, you can't record unless the host gives you permission. But if you're the host, you can record it. When you leave the meeting, it will download that whole lesson. You name it, you date it. And I've taken a lot of notes for you already in this PDF that that Jamie just put in there. So what we like to do, instead of sending kids a file that's as long as the lesson was, and then they have to kind of go through the whole thing again, if they want to, they can do that. But we send them a file of a synopsis of that lesson. Here are the 3 chords we learned. Here's your C chord, talk them through it. Here's your G chord, talk them through it. Here's your F chord. Okay, and we did this song. And when we did this song, we used these 3 chords, and we might count it out and show them how we do it slowly. We often get up close to the screen. I'm going to grab the guitar here. And if we're just working on the right hand, I'll just forget about having a head and say, okay, watch what I'm doing on the right hand really close. And this will be on my follow-up video, although I do it in Zoom as well, okay? And on the left hand, I'm going to call out the strings. I'm from the 6th string to the 1st string. I'm going to call out the frets. 3, 3, 2, 0, 1, 0. So part of that is about developing the language that you're going to use from the beginning. And by creating these synopsis videos, and we try to keep them to like 5 minutes. And if they're much longer than 5, we might make 2 videos so they're easier to send. Then we have a Dropbox or a way of sending that, okay? And you can have the Dropbox for that class. Give everybody the link and just tell them go there after, 2 hours after every class, and you're going to find your practice materials. It's going to have your audio tracks. It's going to have a synopsis of the lesson. And maybe if you use them, maybe it'll be a PDF chart. But that way, there's a way for them to follow up, to practice along. We like to send some of our tracks in 2 different tempos, a real slow, hey, I'm just learning this tempo, and maybe a faster tempo for I'm getting pretty good. I could play along at a better tempo. And by the way, there's lots of ways to play those backup tracks. All Marcy just did was she came out of her phone into a boombox.
Little speaker. I sometimes use a speaker about that big that costs $23.
And then it's just coming through a microphone.
My volume control is moving it closer to the computer or back further away. I just do that until people give me a thumbs up, that's good, and then I leave it and then start the song over.
One of the things that we've learned, especially in working with kids, is expect to cover less material than you would expect in a live scenario. and that's okay. You know, it doesn't pay to cram more material in than they can really remember or do. It's harder to make that personal connection with each kid if you're in a jam class or a kids kind of class. And you're better off being really thorough with less material and having everybody walk away feeling like either I have this or when I practice it, I'm going to be able to get it, than you are putting more material in there. And so you may take up more of your class time doing the kind of stuff that Tom's doing on Facebook, which is, okay, we just learned the first line of this song. Now we're going to play it 4 times in a row together. I'm going to count you in, you all stay on mute, and then we're going to do it together. And then here comes the question, how do I know if they've got it? Well, you're looking at their screens. If they're not playing at all, they probably don't have it. And you can also ask a couple people to volunteer to play it back to you, which brings up a very interesting thing. At the top of the class and at the top of the series that you're teaching, the first thing you need to do is figure out how everybody's going to become comfortable, build community, and support each other in the class. It's so much easier to do live and in person, but it's so important in this scenario. We like to say, you know, if you have first of all, there's no such thing as a dumb question, including if y'all have any questions, just throw them in the chat if you want to, or there's few enough of you that you can raise your hands. We use the chat a lot when there's more than one screen full of people. So we like to remind people there's no such thing as a dumb question. And kids, if you have a question about something, there's a good chance somebody else has that same question and they just didn't ask it. And even if not, there's a good chance that when we answer your question, everybody's going to learn something. So please ask those questions. Calling on kids one at a time, show me what you're doing, but we have to have an agreement at the top that I may have some suggestions to make that'll help you with how you hold the guitar, how you play, how you're making your tone on the fiddle. Everybody pay attention to those because they're not just for that person, they're for everybody. And you sort of have to get everybody to agree, and it's not even a bad idea to get them to unmute and say, yep, I agree, or give you a thumbs up, that acknowledgement part of the whole thing. Let's see if there's any questions at the moment. And then we're going to go on to some nuts and bolts of Zoom and come back to teaching techniques. Any questions so far? Okay, nuts and bolts of Zoom, stuff that you probably already know, a lot of stuff that you already know. Jamie put together this awesome document that you are all emailed on Zoom. Obviously, you all know how to get onto Zoom. How many of you understand, or how many of you don't understand the audio and video settings? Anybody not know about that? Jim B, you're newer to this. Are you familiar with those?
Well, I've seen them on there, so I think I can use them.
Okay, so important one of the most important ones is the one about original sound. We now have original sound on. It doesn't make that much difference when you're speaking, but when you play music, it does. And I'm thinking that there's somebody here who isn't muted, and I think it's Carol, and that's given us a little bit of feedback. So most of the time we try and keep everybody muted. When it's a small group like this, it's actually a little less necessary. But when you start playing music and everybody's not playing in time with each other, you just kind of have to do that. So is everybody on a computer right now? Anybody on a phone? No. Anybody on an iPad?
Me.
All right.
Oh,
You're
right.
on an iPad.
Okay, 2.
Okay, so where we mention things are might look a little different to you, and you're going to have to scroll around and look for them. But somewhere you're going to have a microphone, and next to that microphone is an arrow, and when you push on that arrow, you get a big menu, select the microphone. And right now, Marcy, what we've selected is the webcam microphone.
And how do we sound?
How's it sound? All
I
right.
did that on purpose. Now I'm going to go to a fancy setup and see if it sounds any different, better or worse.
You tell me.
How does it sound now? Does it
Let's
sound
see
any different?
if it actually did it. Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It switched us to a Neumann U87 microphone going through a fancy amp.
Does it make any difference?
A little.
Little? Okay.
You know, it's
Quality's better, volume's way down.
Yeah.
Okay,
quality was
that's a
better,
great
but
thing.
volume-
So what that means is now we have to go to the bottom of that page where it says audio settings, okay? And I'm going to go there. And there you see you can test your speaker, you've got your output choice, and you said the volume's way down. That's very interesting because it's making it look like our volume's all the way up, but Marcy can turn it up from there.
Sure.
Let's see if this is, let me move this screen so I can see you. Is the volume improving? Is it better now? Okay. So
Okay.
one of the things that we do at the top of the class, we'll make sure that everybody can hear us really well. A lot of times what we'll do is we're Macintosh people, so we'll go make ourselves the fastest QuickTime video. Set up the same audio and video settings that we're going to do for Zoom and test it. And then we listen back to that test. 30 seconds is plenty. Strum something on an instrument, talk a little bit, hit play, get to see exactly what other people are going to see and hear. If it's not adequate, then we work on it. And typically, you know, we'll do this for 10 minutes before we start something that's going to go on. And that would have told us that the audio wasn't very good. But important thing for you all, the camera that we're using right now is $120 Logitech NC20 or something.
It's little. It's like that big.
It's a USB
Sits on the
camera,
computer.
goes into the computer, and it has a microphone in it. That's pretty darn good. And when we did this workshop last week, I just used the built-in camera on my laptop and the built-in microphone, and that's fine too. I would say that in COVID times when we don't have lots of extra money, don't buy any gear you don't need. If you're finding that your gear isn't serving you, then think about what you might need. And in the document you got emailed, we made some suggestions about that. So now we're in that audio settings. And if you click at the bottom of that page on advanced, you get a couple more options. And Jim, let me know if you can't find them on your iPad. I've done this on iPad, but sometimes you have to hunt around for it. Echo cancellation, just let it say auto. Most important thing is you click Show in Meeting option to enable original sound. Once you click that and you close out of this window, you're going to have something in the top left corner that says Turn off original sound. Why they couldn't just act like normal people and say original sound is on instead of tell you that you have to turn off original sound when you have it on, I don't know. But if it says turn off original sound, that means it's on. If it says turn on original sound, that means it's off. And we're going to do that experiment for you in a minute, but I want to look at a couple of other things there.
And just so you know, the original sound, oh, I can't see you anymore. That's okay.
They can see you.
What we try to do with that original sound is that the Zoom was invented for meetings, and there's a compressor in it that turns off room noise. So if you play an instrument and speak or sing, you're going to kind of get a mishmash of one or the other because of that compressor. So it doesn't, in many recording, a compressor can give you more talent, but in Zoom it gives you less. So
all right, so now we're in Show in Meeting, Enable Original Sound, and underneath that are 3 new boxes to Zoom. When original sound is enabled, you get the option to disable echo cancellation, to click on High Fidelity Music Mode, and to click on Use Stereo Audio. In our experience, having tried all of them, none of them are worth it. They sound like they would be. It sounds like it would be worth it to add high fidelity mode, but the few times that we tried it, the results weren't really worth it.
same with video. You can choose to enhance your video, but all it did was show more wrinkles for me, so I turned it off.
So let's close that. Now you should all have turn off original sound somewhere on your screen. And now I'm going to turn I have actually turned off original sound. So on my screen, it now says turn on original
So
sound.
play something and
And
sing, see
Marcy's
what
going to
happens.
play something and you'll see what it sounds like.
Okay.
Here you go.
The prairie sky is wide and high, deep in the heart of Texas.
Okay, now I'm going to switch back to original sound. Now it's on, which means it says off. Isn't that fun? Go.
The rose in bloom is like perfume, deep in the heart of Tennessee.
Okay, so Tom gave us a thumbs up and said, yeah, I heard the difference there. That's an appreciable difference. It's also something you're going to want to walk your students through. From time to time, you're going to have the best case scenario, particularly depending on the age of your students and how tech savvy they are, the best case scenario for the first 1 or 2 Zooms is for them to have a adult parental unit, somebody that helps them with their homework, with their online this and that, available to help them. The last thing we want to do is frustrate kids with, this is so hard to figure out how to make it all work. They can get it. Some of these kids are better at this stuff than we are, but some of them aren't. Some of them don't have the latest and greatest on their computers. Some of them are working off of a mediocre old phone. So if they can get someone to help them, I think it's a good thing to ask for your opening lesson in a group that involves kids. If they can't, you're going to do what you can do. And, the thing is, you don't want to spend your whole lesson on technology. So if what they get is slightly more mediocre sound for part of the time, but you get your lesson in, that's a really important thing for them to have. So we're always making compromises and living with those compromises. Now, if you go next to the microphone and its up arrow, there's also the video camera and its up arrow. And that's where you choose what video camera you're using. Maybe you don't have a choice. And if you don't have a choice, you click on what you got and it's all going to work. In our case, we could be using the camera from the computer or this HD Pro webcam C90, which is what we've clicked on, okay? Each time you start Zoom, and even if you do what Jamie smartly put in these Zoom tips and tricks about an advance going into your settings and all of that, sometimes you turn on Zoom and these settings just go away. I don't know why, but it happens. Here's what you do. Don't think you did something wrong. Just go in there and reconfigure it, because that happens all the time. Very important thing, make sure that students have the link handy to the Zoom classroom. The other thing that happens from time to time is people either get kicked out of Zoom for reasons that none of us really understand, or they accidentally click on something and get out, right? You want to make sure they have your phone number. You want to make sure they can email you or text you. You want to make sure they have a way to get back in. And you want to let them know if from time to time something bizarre like that happens and they can't get back in, that you're going to make sure they get the follow-up materials. I want to go over to something that Bob T. talked about regarding total beginners, because that came in a lot of questions. This is not an easy format for total beginners. Now, Marcy has taught some adult total beginners.
I had some teens and some adults. And what I find is, I'll just use this because it's here. I have to be extra descriptive in what I'm asking people to do. So, Tom, how many instruments would you normally teach at once in a jam session?
In a junior Appalachian musician session. And by the way, a way to respond is to hit on your space bar. That will automatically
hold it down while you talk.
Hold down your space bar while you talk.
I think that'll work.
See if that works for you, Bob. It doesn't always work. It didn't work for us all last time, but sometimes it does. Can you unmute yourself, Bob?
If you're holding the space bar down, you have
there
to
you go.
Keep it,
Yes.
Keep it down while you talk.
Well, you you directed the question to Tom, I think.
No, I said Bob T.
Okay, but we are just doing fiddle and guitar.
And are they
Okay.
separate or in the same class?
They are separate.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's my question.
Great.
So what I find with beginners on the guitar, especially, because I don't teach fiddle, I don't play fiddle. So what I have to do is really coach them about how to hold their hand and curve their fingers, and then put the fingertips on the strings. Like normally they would be looking at you close up, and even here they have a front row seat to the class. But just describing every motion, or practice picking your fingers up and down, put your finger here, put your finger there, and see how it feels. And it does work. I think the hardest thing for my beginners class was getting everybody in tune. And so I did recommend that they get tuner apps or clip-on tuners.
And we have a whole thing in here on helping people get in tune.
But also what I did was 15 minutes before class, I had everybody sign on for the first couple of weeks just to make sure they were in tune and were ready to start when the class started.
And as you all know, kids are going to have trouble getting in tune. That's going to be one of their challenges when they're first picking up an instrument. Again, we often like to ask for help from a parent, an adult, someone who obviously was interested in signing them up for this class, is interested in seeing them succeed in music. The challenge for kids a lot of the time, whether it be fiddle or guitar or whatever it is of course, for good reason, they like to futz with these pegs. And they really don't necessarily understand how just a little bit goes a long way. So I think, in that first lesson and in that 10 or 15 minutes before class starts, anybody who wants help with tuning, why don't you chime in a little bit early? And that reminder that we only have to turn it a tiny little bit. You're going to have to teach them how to use a tuner and what that means, but hopefully you're doing that with the help of a parent or whoever is enabling them from home to be part of this, and maybe get the parent involved in helping them get in tune before class. The other thing is giving lots of different views, right? So Marcy with the ukulele was like right in front and said, right in front and was like, watch out. Here's my guitar. We're going to come up with a language besides saying this is E, A, D, G, B, E. I might start calling this 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I do the same thing with the frets. Oops, watch out. Watch out. 0, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1. So we're developing early on the same language. And if I say, okay, the chord we're going to play, before they know what it is, we're going to play, we're going to not even pay attention to 6 and 5. We're going to make believe they're not there, and we're going to play 4 open, 3 open, 2 open, and 1 on the 3rd fret. Developing that language, I would say at half that speed with kids, and I'd say let's do it together. Open 4th. Open 3rd. Open 2nd. Now everybody make sure you have a finger on the 3rd fret, 1, 2, 3 of the 1st string. And now let's strum it together. Let's do it again. That kind of slow stuff. And a side view. You might wonder what I'm doing with my thumb. Here's what it looks like. I'll show this kind of view. Go ahead.
At this point, let's back up a little bit. One of the reasons why you can see Cathy's hands is because we have lighting going on. We haven't really addressed lighting yet. We talked about cameras and microphones. But you need a light that's in front of you. If you're sitting in front of a window, there's light behind you, and that makes your face dark. So you can see yourselves on this if you're in gallery view. Can everybody see their own personage?
So
you'll know what you need in front of you, and it can be as simple as a nice little lamp. We have some LED kind of adjustable studio lighting, and it's not that expensive, but really just some kind of light focus in front of you is great.
Sure, we've run lots of big festivals in the last 6 months. We've done 3 banjo festivals that had 200 people in them and as many as 125 people in a class. A lot of these instructors, they're great players. They have what I would call decent but not high-end gear. We sound check with all of them in advance. And in that sound check, we're paying attention to sound and video. And if they need lighting, sometimes we'll say, see if you've got a lamp that you can put behind your camera facing you. And so for instance, and not to make anybody feel awkward, but Jim, your light is coming from behind you. So we see a dark face. If you were teaching with your guitar or whatever you have there, it would be hard for people to see. And sometimes just placing a lamp in the right place, go on to some format, QuickTime. If you've got an iPad, Jim, you've got QuickTime. And a lot of times we stream from an iPad, and the sound in the video is better than lots of other things. But we'll do that test in QuickTime and see what it looks like and see what it sounds like. Nobody's expecting you to have thousands of dollars of pro gear, but they need to be able to see you. They need to be able to hear you. Brandon Holder, you're a little bit dark where you are. That doesn't, but one lamp directed the right way would probably be just enough. Yes, you can go out and spend money on some pro lights. There's all kinds of lights that clip on. There's a lot of inexpensive gear in lighting and audio that you can use. But Marcy's brought up a good point, because if they can't see you, then it's going to be really hard for them to pick up what you're learning from. Let's stop for a second again and just take any questions. Anybody? Yeah, Deborah.
I've had I have a couple students where sometimes just in the middle of the lesson, there'll be a sudden drop in their volume, and then it'll come back again. And I'm guessing that I know I didn't walk them through all of the audio settings when we started, and I'm guessing that it's because they're not on original sound. Would you say that's what it probably is?
It could be their Wi-Fi connection. If especially teachers, if there's a chance you can hook up to the Ethernet, that's so preferable. But yeah, Wi-Fi can make you drop in and out. But also walking through the settings is, troubleshooting is a great idea.
And part of that too is Zoom works best, and I think this is in the stuff that that Jamie sent you. Zoom absolutely works best when it is not competing with anything else on your computer, for you and also for the people that you're teaching. So you want everything else to be closed if possible, okay? You don't want to have lots of other applications running. And that gives, Zoom's kind of greedy, and that gives Zoom a little bit more bandwidth to work. Turning off original sound could help. If you or your students have the ability to be on Ethernet as opposed to Wi-Fi, that gives you a direct connection. Wi-Fi, we're here in Lansing, North Carolina, middle of nowhere. We have better Wi-Fi and Ethernet here than we have in Washington, D.C. when we're up there. There, our Wi-Fi is like terrible. And but we went to using Ethernet most of the time here. And we're right now in Marcy's video studio. She even got an Ethernet adapter that's kind of like a hub, that's kind of like a USB hub. So she could plug a few things into Ethernet at the same time. It makes a really big difference. Other things that make a difference, and this could impact the sound, Deborah, it can also impact the video. If other people in the family are running applications and using up Wi-Fi, there's less for who's ever doing the lesson. If you're on Ethernet, then you're not really impacted by that, but most people aren't. And a lot of the kids, I know a lot of the jam kids are in rural areas, they barely have Wi-Fi. Gratitude to the
yes, North Carolina.
gratitude to the North Carolina Arts and Cultural
Resources,
Resources Department, because they have put Wi-Fi in like 70,000 new places, libraries and parking lots and this and that. But are kids going there for their music lessons? Who knows? And so that's another thing that you can say to the families in advance, because you've got to be somehow connecting via email with these families before the lessons happen. The lesson is going to be easier if 5 other people aren't on their Wi-Fi at the same time. And if I was doing a lesson not too long ago, and the student I was working with, their sound was dropping in and out, and finally they said, I'm going to tell my brother to turn off that movie. And that made all the difference, you know. So there's got to be a little bit of family cooperation. And then sometimes it's just what happens, you know.
A storm or, who knows?
A storm not in your neighborhood, but down the road. Jamie's got something. What's up?
Yeah, I think also last time you had mentioned that sometimes the kids can turn their cameras off, even though ideally you would want to see them, sometimes having their camera off, but they can still see you as the instructor. If they're having bandwidth issues, that's one other option.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's good.
Now, one
That's
more
great.
thing I want to mention, it's in the notes that Jamie put together in the audio settings. You want to uncheck automatically adjust microphone volume. So one of the Brandons said to me, oh, your volume is quiet. I want to uncheck that, and I want to either adjust the volume via my computer, or in this case, it was as high as it would go on Zoom, and it was a matter of doing it on our interface, okay? That's an important thing. Jamie's given you a great tutorial on your audio settings for Zoom. I always like to remind people, you know, this is about the music. We don't want to get lost in the technology, and the kids don't want to get lost in the technology. So at a certain point, if it's mostly working, just teach and have some fun. Let's talk about the different views that you have, okay, and about recording. So everybody, if you're not in gallery view, go to the top right where it says view. You're going to have I have 3 options right now. One of my options is gallery view, which means I can see everybody in what we like to call the Brady Bunch squares. And some of you may be too young to know about the Brady Bunch. Then you have to go to the YouTube and find it. And so gallery view is your Brady Bunch. And if you get more than 20 people, then you're going to go into 2 pages and 3 pages and all of that. Speaker view will highlight who's ever speaking. Now, what's interesting about speaker view and drives me a little nuts is that right now I'm speaking, but on my screen, Jamie is the only person I can see. And
you look fabulous.
Jamie looks great. I don't have anything against seeing her. It's just that what you see and what you get, it's very odd. We've done a lot of performances from Zoom to Facebook and YouTube, and we'll go into speaker view, and maybe we're sharing a show. We did one, for instance, with Tom Paxton, and we're controlling who's in speaker view, and it'll say that we're in speaker view, but we'll see Tom large front and center. And then my friend who's on the phone monitoring it for me on Facebook says, don't worry, Zoom does that. We're still seeing you guys. You know, who knows why that is? Go ahead, Jamie.
So I've got one more, and this one is relatively new, but gallery view and speaker view are both user controlled. So you cannot necessarily make your kids go to speaker view or gallery view. You can ask them to go, but there is also, as the host, a spotlight for everyone option. So I can go to that by clicking in the upper right corner of Cathy and Marcy's box and click spotlight for everyone. And now everyone should see Cathy and Marcy, hopefully in the speaker view format, but that I control as the host. And yes, you both look fabulous.
Thank you. We're not fishing for compliments.
And then we can hit remove spotlight. Now, turn off original sound. On our computer, that is not in the top right. So I wonder where it is.
Maybe if we go back to gallery, because the pictures now
Sorry.
are across the top.
I'm at the top right corner of your box.
Oh, the three,
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah, the
three
dots.
dots. Okay, everybody
Yes.
go to the top right corner of your box, and you'll have your audio mute or whatever. You can mute your audio. When you click on those three dots, there's a whole bunch of other things, right? Stop video. I do a lot of meetings like this, except it's on my computer, and so it's me and not the adorable Marcy Marxer. But I just got out of a Zoom meeting where I was listening, but I wasn't going to be a speaker, and I just decided not to keep my video going. Pin video, spotlight for everyone.
It's good, Jamie. Thank you.
Now, Jamie, let me ask this question. Spotlight for everyone, that does it on everybody's screen then, yes?
Yes, and there is also, if you're doing, this may not be as applicable for a class, but it might be at some point, if you have a guest or something along those lines, a guest instructor, you can actually have multiple spotlights. So I can spotlight Cathy and Marcy, and then I can also add spotlight, and suddenly there's Brent and Cathy and Marcy.
What?
But you can only do that as the host, correct?
I think the co-hosts can do it as well. So if you have older students who are helping you out or assisting you with your teaching, they might be able to handle some of these pieces and let you focus more on the teaching piece.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, if you go right below spotlight for spotlight, I've got spotlight for everyone because we're co-hosts. But the next thing is an important one. I'm going to remove the spotlight for a second. The next thing's an important one, and I'm going to go back to gallery view. Well, here's my question. I'm on speaker view. Do you guys see Jamie or do you guys see us?
I see y'all.
Really?
Yeah, so that's a weird thing, but it's an important thing to know as an instructor. Because when you go to speaker view, that's the view that you're going to want for recording your lesson, okay? And to record, there's a round record button at the bottom next to share screen. And when, you know, if we were to do this now and be on speaker view and Jamie's recording, so she's in charge of how she is making this recording view. But I have several times hit record, put myself on speaker view, seen somebody else, like at the moment I'm seeing Bob T. And that's because he spoke once, but he's still seeing me, right? You just have to go with that as an instructor. It's not a clean piece of Zoom. But that way, in speaker view, when you're recording, that way the kids are getting the benefit of the whole screen, not of you being one of the Brady Bunch showing them what to do and they're seeing 7 other kids doing stuff, okay? So I'm going to go back to gallery view for a minute. And one more important thing under those 3 dots, very important, rename. A lot of kids will come in as in their parents' Zoom accounts or in somebody else's Zoom account, and they're new students, you don't know who they are, have them go to rename and put their name there. Again, as we all know, when you're working with kids, using their names and using their names in a friendly way is encouraging to them. And you don't want to be sitting there going, oh, Margie, that means it's really Susie. You don't want to be doing that the whole time. Their parents can rename themselves afterwards if you want to, or if they want to. So now I'm trying to get it to undo that. It won't. There, I got it to undo that. Let's see. Then full screen, we don't use that much. Share screen, we sometimes use.
I use it a lot.
And Marcy uses a lot to show PDF chord charts.
If you, now, do you all have the option of clicking on the share screen button?
I think if they're hosts.
Okay, it might list some things for you. It's like what happens when my share screen comes up. I have a monitor behind the computer, so I'm going to keep looking at you, and this monitor is old. I mean, it's something that a company was going to throw away. So a friend called and asked if I wanted it, and I said yeah. So all you need is the right connector to connect something old to whatever. I have a 2015 laptop that I use, and so this monitor lets me have a screen dedicated just to the material that I want to show. So let's look at some material right now. I'm going to share the screen. I have an option of sharing you this computer screen or the monitor screen or a whiteboard where you can use your cursor to draw things, which is pretty sweet, and a couple of other things too. So I'm going to show you what's on my monitor screen by clicking on that, and I click on desktop number 2, and are you seeing it? Good? Okay. So this, you want to talk about this video, Cathy?
Sure. For several people asked the question, I can't see. Yeah, bring it. Bring it over here where I can see it. So there's an organization that Marcy and I have done a lot of work with called Jam Pack out in Chandler, Arizona, run by the most amazing person, Annie Beach, who brings kids of every background into bluegrass and roots music. And as you all know, because of latency, we can't play together in Zoom. But Annie wanted to figure out how to do recitals in Zoom. And one of the questions that a lot of people have asked is, hey, how do you keep kids interested when you're doing it this way? We know a lot of instructors that do recitals with their students. Sometimes they do them on Facebook, but usually they do them on Zoom. They invite friends and family to be part of the party. And Annie did this Zoom session. You're going to see how little some of these kids are. And somehow, with practice, they figured out the latency. And what they figured out was that before somebody else finished their turn for a half a verse or a chorus or whatever they were going to play, they had to click their unmute button just a little bit early and get started over the other person. So we're going to actually play this little recital. They did a song that I wrote called Hold Each Other Up, and it's, let's see, 3, 6, 9, 10 different screens of kids who did this. And the thing about doing this and practicing it and working on it is it gave them incentive to get better. But they also had to work with each other to make it happen. So here we go.
The song is called Hold Each Other Up, and it was composed by my choir teacher, Cathy, Fink. And this song is very much needed right now because of the coronavirus that's going around. We need to hold each other up, uplift each other, and stay positive. So this is Hold Each Other Up by Miss Cathy Fink.
We've seen drawings and threads, some by heart and some have left. There's one thing that can help us all get by. If we listen to our hearts, each new praise a brand new start. We can love each other better if we try. We're gonna hold each other up, gonna lift each other high. Gonna love each other better than before. This So we'll keep on turning and hearts will keep on yearning for each other when the world is so unsure. We have time to be kind, it's a time to rewind. Deep down our differences are few, and every minute ways turning worries into days. We believe that our love will bring us through. We're gonna hold each other up. We're gonna lift each other high. We're gonna love each other better than before. This whole world will keep on turning, and our hearts will keep on yearning for each other when the world is so unsure.
Okay, get out of that.
Hang on, I'll stop the screen share. Oops.
Hi everybody, we're the Jam Packed Blues and Grass Neighborhood Band,
Whoop.
and we're going to be
Hang
playing
on.
a song
I'm looking for the
composed by
cursor.
my choir teacher, Miss Cathy.
There it is. There it
And
is.
this song is really special right now.
We're
because
trying
of
to
this
stop it. There you
coronavirus
go.
that's going around
Okay.
the country.
Ah.
It's important
So that's
for
a
us to be
YouTube video
positive,
playing.
uplift each other out.
Stop. Yeah.
Okay.
So we just shared that little YouTube video. Needless to say, the kids are adorable, but the incentive and the concept of working together really came across. And it's hard to do, but it can be done. So, and you know, I've done it quite a bit, and the timing is never as good as what the Jam Pack kids did, but that's okay. You know, people are forgiving. And I think it's a thing to remember in your teaching on Zoom. There's a lot of forgiveness around the technology. Don't let the technology get in the way of what's most important, which is we love music and we want kids to love music and grow up playing music. And to that end, I think the most important thing is remember to make the technical stuff less of a focus, just enough technical stuff for us to make it happen so that we can come together with a smile, give kids this light of music during this ridiculous time, and at times we can give them a sense also of sharing, of community. I think there are times, I don't know you all individually that much, but I know when Marcy and I are doing a kids group and we see somebody really struggling, we'll go ahead and try and schedule a one-on-one with them. And we're not going to charge them more for it. We want to see if we can help them get to a place where they can enjoy the rest of the class. And sometimes in that one-on-one, we can dig into some things that maybe aren't going to work for the whole class. It's your job as an instructor to set the tone of the class in the beginning. When you're in a live class, without using the word rules, you do come up with a series of things of this is how this class is going to work. You got a question, you raise your hand. If you can't hear me, you let me know. Whatever your rules are when you're in a live class, don't worry about that right now.
Okay.
And you're going to figure out what your set of rules or suggestions are when you're coming together online. And so, for instance, I like to tell kids, no such thing as a dumb question. You can raise your hand if I can see all of you. You can put a question in the chat if you know how to do that. There's a raise hand feature somewhere.
Hang on, I'm trying to get there.
What are you trying to get to?
The raised hand feature.
No, I don't need it right now.
Okay, I want to see.
There's a raised hand feature somewhere. And share computer sound. That's a good one.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the screen, share the window that opens that. Thank you for that, Jamie. But I think, first and foremost, you might even acknowledge to the students, hey, learning like this is new for all of us. And this is different than me being your reading teacher and we're all looking at a book. We're going to be making sounds that are supposed to bring us a lot of joy. Not that books won't bring us joy, but we're going to have to be especially careful about how we treat each other, how we ask questions, how we answer questions, and from time to time, I'm going to call on you. I want you to show me what you're doing, and I might give you some help, just like I would if we were in a live class. And basically what I'm doing at that point is I'm trying to create a sense of trust amongst everyone, where it's okay to make corrections. If you don't do that, then they're not learning. That's your job as a teacher, but we have to find a fun way to do it. One of the things a lot of people asked about in our last session is how do you hold the attention of young kids for these long periods of time? Number one, there's no law that says you have to go for a whole hour. A lot of these kids have already had a half a day or more of screen time. But number two, take breaks. Hey, everybody, let's put your instruments down for a minute. I want y'all to stand up and stretch, and I'm going to stand up and stretch. Maybe you do a game of Simon Says. Maybe you come up with a series of calisthenics. Maybe whatever it is, one of the things that we do a lot, we use that really dumb song, My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, and there's a great game, and this is really good for kids. Every time you sing a word with the letter B, if you were sitting, you stand, and if you were standing, you sit. And now we're going to do it with you because you're all looking at us like you've been looking at a screen for too long, so we're going to take a little break, and we're going to do it. Is everybody ready for some exercise? Smile and say yes. Here we go. Look, Jamie's putting her computer away. Are you ready? My Bonnie lies over the ocean. My Bonnie lies over the sea. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. Oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. Here we go. Bring back, bring back. Oh, bring back my Bonnie to me, to me. Bring back, bring back. Oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. And maybe we'll do it slow and then maybe we'll do it fast. And everybody's laughing. And look, we've got smiles from both Brandons. Jim B has more light. I mean, magic happened. But, it gave us a chance to shake it out, to move around, and then to come back and refocus for a little bit. I think it's a great thing to do with kids. And frankly, even when I'm in a room with kids, I'll tell them to put their instruments down and let's do that. Or some other game where we get some movement and we get some circulation, etc. Let's stop for a second and take some questions. And Jamie, are there any critical Zoom tricks that we haven't gone over that you think we need to do?
Nothing is especially jumping to mind. I will say I'll make sure my contact information is in here as well if anyone does have questions. And to the calisthenics or breaking things up point that Cathy and Marcy just made, for the camps that we did this summer, they were summer camps. We actually did hold them for 3 hours, but there were breaks. There were also breakouts. Zoom does have a breakout room feature. Depending how big a group of students you're working with and whether you have assistants or not, that may be something to explore and learn more about, or even just, hey, Bob and Carol and Brandon J, why don't you take a 5-minute break while I work with Deborah and Brett and Brandon Holder on, something that they want to work on, and then we'll switch in 10 minutes. And that gives everybody a little bit more attention and also that break, that spacing things out.
And that works, that's exactly the kind of thing that we would all do in a live classroom. Those kids would either get a break or they could go to another room and practice together if they wanted to, while you work with a couple of kids. And that's another way of using some of that time in your 45 minutes or hour that doesn't have all eyes on screen at the same time. They just have to be paying enough attention to come on back in 10 minutes. And that's a great way to give some one-on-one to some people.
Also, I think it's possible to use very few links so that kids always know how to get in. you can use one link over and over. So I teach 6-week classes. I'll often put a link up for 6 weeks, and at the end of 6 weeks, that expires. But I have a friend who teaches a lot online, and he only has one link. It's just that he starts a meeting and stops a meeting whenever he feels like it, and all his students have the link. So it can be pretty easy if they make a note and save the link somewhere.
And as you've noticed, when you get invited to a Zoom thing, there's a list of phone numbers at the bottom. And so if a kid, for instance, if their video fails, if it screws up or whatever, and they get kicked out, again, you're going to want to suggest to them that they keep that, maybe even print it out if they can, so that if nothing else, they can call in and listen to the lesson if they can't, if something happens. And plus, by having these summary tutorial videos, they're going to have a way to kind of catch up. There's a couple things that people wrote in that I want to go over, and some of these are in the second handout that's in your PDF chat. Don't forget that you can use the chat to put a handout in, or a link or whatever it may be. How do you adjust for instruments that hurt or are too big for small hands? Needless to say, not being in person, again, that's a lot harder to do. But one of the things is, as people sign up, chatting with the parents or guardians or whoever it is that was behind signing this kid up for music. I know a lot of the jam classes loan instruments and have a lot of instruments. For a kid to feel good about playing an instrument, it's got to feel good to them. A lot of people start kids on guitars that are just too big for their bodies. It's one of the reasons why we become such big proponents of ukulele for young kids and small hands. But there are small-sized guitars and banjos and, fiddles. Hi there. Can you say hi?
Well, also, I started playing guitar when I was 5, and I still have that guitar, and it's surprisingly not small. But what my parents did was take the steel strings off it and put nylon strings on it. So often if you buy a guitar that's meant for nylon strings, it's got a wide neck. I mean, that's kind of the nature of that style guitar. But to take like a really inexpensive steel string guitar with a nice small neck, go ahead and put nylon strings on it. And that's a lot easier on the kids' fingers.
That's how I learned as well in the beginning. And then, you get enough calluses from that. Eventually you can bump up to steel strings if you want them. Don't forget that Jam has resources for instruments. And my understanding from Brett was that there's a relationship with Diodario. If you need tuners, clip-on tuners like these for your students, I think you can get them for free from Jam for your students. There's a relationship with the organization Hungry for Music. You can request instruments for students. I think Jam's done a great job of answering to the accessibility of having the gear that it takes to do this. So if you have questions about that, be in touch with Brett. How do I get instruments for my students? How do I get the right size instruments for my students, etc.? And also, I'll put Jamie, since we're further away from our computer, if you don't mind putting info@cathymarcy.com. That's our email, and you're welcome to email us. Marcy and I also have relationships with a lot of instrument companies, and they love it when we call them and say, hey, we're working with this class and wants to buy, 5 small-sized guitars. Can we get a group discount? Can we make that happen? Feel free to email us and lean on us about that. Talk to Brett about the relationships that Jam has.
What? Did somebody just say something?
I think Brett just chimed back in.
Oh, okay.
So the other thing is, if you have total beginners, you may want to schedule a pre-lesson with those beginners, each one with their parental or guardian unit who helped sign them up for the class, for the purpose of helping everybody get on the same page. get that parent involved in helping the kid be in tune. Let's make sure you're ready. Even though we're going to do this in class with everybody, let's make sure you know how to hold your guitar. Let's make sure you're going to be in tune. Let's try and do this together. And spending 10 or 15 minutes really sometimes makes everybody feel like they've been in Head Start for class. It's more time on your part. And hey, we're all busy and nobody wants to spend 5 more minutes on the screen, but actually we're always willing to do it because if it buys more engagement and enjoyment, then it's worth that extra 10 or 15 minutes per student. It might even be, in light of what Jamie had to say, if you can't find that time in the group class, it might even be a thing where every week you schedule 2 kids together for a little special time with you. Yeah, I know you're not getting paid extra for it. I'm not telling you that you have to do it. I'm
Even
just saying
15 or 20 minutes is great.
a little bit goes a long way, and it also goes a long way in making them feel like you care, you're building a relationship with them. The stronger that relationship is, the more fun everybody's going to have.
I have to say, this is kind of a presentation approach to a Zoom meeting. A Zoom class can get very social.
Oh, yeah.
And it can be hilarious and wonderful, really just about as wonderful as it is in person. I'm just having a great time with it, but I have to admit, it took a few classes before I started to get comfortable with it and before my students got comfortable saying things to me. So it's like setting up just like you do in your classes when you teach, you set the atmosphere for everybody. So in a sense, even though we're right in front of you, or right in front of a group of kids or students, we're almost like selling the material, Get them, have a good time with them, just like you would in person. And you all do that anyway, or you wouldn't be playing music. So you can all express yourselves and have a good time. But it does get surprisingly social.
And it brings up another thing, which is right here, we have a group of people who haven't taught on Zoom a whole lot. You could connect in the chat and you could become each other's guinea pigs for practice. Now, we do have a practice session set up for next Wednesday, same time, 2:30 to 3:30. And any of you who want to practice with the rest of us as your students, we want you to have that opportunity. But you can also do that with your friends. Marcy and I we've probably run about 10 large festivals since mid-April. And when we've hired instructors for Uke Fest, for Banjo Fest, for a guitar festival who haven't done a lot on Zoom, we always schedule a practice session. One of our favorites, Jim Beloff, some of you may be familiar with him. He's one of the most famous uke players. He's written about 50 books on playing the ukulele. He had barely taught on Zoom. He's been all over the world teaching ukulele. I said, well, Jim, let's do a mock Zoom class. How about I gather 5 of our students that we know are going to love learning from you, and let's do a half hour and give you a chance to push every button, make every mistake, and have every success. And we put that together, and we were all holding glasses of wine and had a big old time. And by the time it was done, he felt much more confident. Oh, I can do this. I can teach this class on Zoom. It's like everything else. How'd you get good at stuff, folks? You got good by doing it and by practicing it. Take the opportunity before you start your classes to do that. Call up some friends. Call us up and say, or, send us that email at info@cathymarcy.com and say, hey, I need to practice on Zoom. Would you do a little session with me, and invite 2 other people? And, that's the way you get good at it. And you know what? You might know everything about Zoom in a month, and still something on Zoom doesn't work the way you want it to work. You just got to pinch hit.
Or they update
it. And as Jamie said at the beginning of this whole thing, don't forget to check for updates all the time. Every update has actually been some kind of improvement. They haven't gotten to that point like iPhones have, where you just wish they didn't force you to do it. I do know that this time next week, y'all have the opportunity, if you wish, to do a little practice. And Brett mentioned that there were a couple students who might be interested in trying that today. Is that the case? Anybody want to do like a 5-minute test? No pressure, don't need to. You've got time to think about it for next week if you want to. Anybody? Here's what we say to kids: I'll close my eyes and then you can't see me.
I like Brett's comment, don't let your 4-year-old trip over your power cord.
Yeah. Or don't let me trip over my power cord. Or there we were doing a great big concert for Strathmore, where we do a lot of work at Performing Arts Center. I don't know what we were doing, some kind of big ukulele jam sing-along on Facebook. And we dropped out of the meeting because we did not notice that the power cord to the computer was not plugged in. And the next thing you know, we get this phone call going, "Where are you?" And we're like, "What happened? What happened?" We're in the other room, switching breakers, and finally we went, "Everything's fine. It's just that the power cord came out. We didn't notice." Even in the best of times, stuff happens, and you just chime in there and you fix it. Let's see. There are a couple other things that I wanted to talk about. Oh, I know. A lot of teachers are using Facebook groups, private Facebook groups, to stay in touch with people in between lessons. And somebody had written in, and this was a good question, and I want to, let's see, had to do with, I'd like to have help getting school and parent permission, cooperation, and getting their permission to connect with my students through social media like Instagram. My personal advice is you don't want to personally connect with your students that way or on Facebook unless they're older teens who are already on their own doing that stuff. I'm a big fan of parents being looped in to whatever communications you're having with their kids. So we do know a bunch of teachers who have opened up private Facebook groups for their students. And in that case, for most of your students, the parents are going to have to be involved in helping the kid log on to that private Facebook group. But that's a place where kids can practice and say, "Here's what I did this week," and, post a 2-minute video. They can look at each other's videos. You can encourage them to give kudos to their friends in those videos, et cetera, et cetera. If you really feel the need for that kind of continued connection through the week, I'd probably recommend it through a private Facebook group that a parent helps them with, as opposed to getting their independent social media, whatever. And a lot of you are working with kids who are young enough not to be on social media independently. If they're old enough to do it, if you've got some high school kids and stuff like that, it might be a different set of things. But the private Facebook group has become a real go-to for some very successful teachers. I know Toon Fox is using it. I know that Lucas Poole is using it with his banjo students. There are a lot of places that are using these, and it can be very handy. You can also close the group whenever you want to. So if you have a 6-week class and you want a private Facebook group for that class, you can open it up, make it a place for kids to post their progress, even ask some questions. You can close it at the end of the 6 weeks and make it all go away if you want to. It's just another kind of opportunity. So, any other questions? We've got about 5 minutes left. Carol.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. I did a group session for about 3 months when COVID first hit, once a week, and got a lot of experience with Zoom in that case, except I didn't get a lot of experience. One of the reasons things I've been doing today, I've gone from my cell phone to, I usually work in my office, and I wanted to see what it's like for the kids, so I've gone from my cell phone to an iPad to an old laptop today, just to see what it's like on the other end, and that's been kind of humbling, because the two things I noticed, the three things that I noticed the most: we've been classes live again, outside or in an open front building now, all fall. And if things get worse here and we have to go back to virtual teaching, the kids really don't want to. They really despise the virtual. So the thing that I had trouble with was holding people's attention. There seems to be a whole different attention thing, and motivation is really different on Zoom. Like that one, I mean, what's really terrific about the Annie's thing with connecting together, I can see doing that with the kids. That's wonderful. But if you have any other, where you put together a recital like that, but I've taught a lot, but I really hit a wall with a lot of motivational things on the Zoom. It's just different what works
It is
on the
different.
computer than when you're in person with them.
So I think that, another way to have a recital, if you don't do it as a Zoom event, is to ask each student to make a video that they send you, and you can put it together using, iMovie or something like that, and show it on Facebook, either in a private stream, or you can show it on YouTube in a private stream, but invite everyone to participate so each kid can participate in the chat and talk to each other. I mean, everything's imperfect about Zoom, as opposed to being in person. But for instance, when we ran in the summer our online old time banjo contest, where Adam Hurt and I kind of expected we'd get 30 or 35 people to participate, we had 119 video entries on the Mike Seeger commemorative Old Time Banjo Festival page. But the best part for me was that every entry was being watched by at least 50 other participants who were commenting, who were engaging. I actually feel like friends were being made and connections were being made. It's a little intangible, but it's there. And I think what we're reaching for in this Zoom world, in our relationships with these kids that we're teaching, is the intangible challenge. And I would say that, as with everything else in our freelance music careers and world, my entire career amounts to this. There's a moving target that's invisible in front of me, and I have this invisible bag of darts. And my entire career is based on the concept that if I never throw a dart, I will never hit a target. You're not allowed to see that target. You just have to keep throwing. And so, we'll do a workshop or we'll do something, and it's happened to everybody in live concerts. Oh my God, that concert didn't go as well as I thought it would, even though I planned it and I wanted this and I wanted that. And what do? You go back to the drawing board. And I think the thing that this virtual world has required of us is a whole new level of patience and a whole new level of acceptance that, hey, it ain't going to be perfect. It's going to be the best I can make it. And so to that end, if you try Annie's way of doing a Zoom recital and you go, well, that didn't go as well as we wanted, then try getting everybody to send you videos that you're going to string together on YouTube and invite your recital people to come see this private YouTube link, unless they're interested in all being public. And again, that's where I think we're in tricky territory working with kids. You want to make sure you have parental permission, but that's pretty easy to get. And if they don't want their kid to participate, then they won't participate. But you're still, if you have 10 students, you're going to have 8 or you're going to have 6. And you can string it together and show it on Facebook or show it on YouTube and invite not just the parents, but the rest of your friends and your music community. And as the kids get that positive feedback for having been part of it, that's going to feed their desire to continue.
And there's another technical issue with that, kids sending you videos. They need to be unlisted YouTube videos. That's the easiest way to work with them. If they're unlisted, you won't get flagged by Facebook or, accidentally taken down. They have computer programs that search out certain kinds of videos and take them off.
I would suggest that they open a Dropbox folder and have people send it in there.
That's great.
Because if they go to unlisted, what?
Sorry, my computer just announced it's 4:00.
Oh,
cool.
All right.
Perfect.
And Tom, I think you have something.
Yeah, Tom.
To Were you going to share something with us? No?
All
Okay.
right. We are, Brandon, 1 second, and we're close to the end here. But I just want to mention a couple things that are different for those of you who are working in other circumstances beyond JAM and beyond teaching kids. We've had a lot of workshops with 75 to 150 people in them. Obviously not kids events, but that said, we keep everybody on mute. All questions go through the chat. And that's when, as Jamie mentioned earlier, when you get to larger events or if you have a much larger kids group, that's when you're going to want to have someone else on board to help with the technical, to help with the chat. For instance, when Brad Kolodner and I are running the old time banjo festivals and we have 100 people in a workshop, Brad and I are both co-hosts with the instructor. And the instructor doesn't have to look at the chat at all. All they have to do is teach. And we have an agreement with them up front. Hey, just be aware that you'll get a lot of questions. We can answer some of them. You know, 5 people are going to ask what the tuning is every 10 minutes because they didn't listen and they're not looking at the top of the chat. But we can answer those questions. When a question comes up we can't answer, we're going to pick the right time to just plain interrupt you and say, hey, we've got a question from so-and-so. Can you go back about a minute and talk about such and such? So those are the times when getting a partner in there to co-host with you can be helpful. Brandon Holder.
Yeah, just a quick question. Back in spring, when I was learning about Zoom and trying to figure out the easiest way for the kids to access the lessons, y'all mentioned, using one permanent link instead of a different link every week for different meetings. Also with the passwords, obviously it'd be easiest to not use one, but the concern back then when I was reading about it was you would possibly have unwanted people joining your meeting. So I was wondering if that has actually occurred since y'all have used Zoom so much this summer.
It's not occurred
It's
to me.
never occurred to us, and we don't, we've never required the passwords, and it's never occurred to us. If we started having a problem, then we'd have to make a change.
Working with kids, it's not a bad idea to use that extra step though, because you want to, I mostly work with adults and teens, people who would understand if something went wrong, but I don't know, there's arguments pro and con.
And also, this, a couple things that we just talked about might depend on what type of Zoom account you have. The free Zoom account, as you all know, only gives you up to 40 minutes.
45, something like that.
Or something like that. And then it'll cut you off. Now, when I didn't have my own Zoom account and I wasn't using Marcy's, if I had to go longer, then I would just open a new link and keep on going. But you don't want to be doing that with a group of kids. I know that JAM has a relationship, an educational, some kind of relationship with Zoom. So you're going to want to explore what the best type of account for you to have is. And I went from my free account to an account, they were always sending me too many notices saying, hey, you can get a discount on the next level of Zoom. It's usually $150 and now it's going to be $99. And I went for that because I just got tired of having to send another link in the middle of the lesson. But it also brings you other bells and whistles. The free Zoom account probably isn't going to let you use just one link for all of your lessons. I never want to suggest to people to spend money they don't have, but if you think you're going to do a lot of teaching on Zoom, I think you're going to find it's more convenient to wait for one of those discounts and get the full deal. So we're at 4:04 and just about out of time. Are there any further questions?
I'd like to say one more thing about motivating kids. Through years of experience, until I was in my mid-50s, I actually looked kind of like a kid. So when I would say to kids, hey, let's do this, it was like a peer. It's like, yeah, I want to do that. And now that I'm older, it's a little bit different, I notice. But by showing them videos of kids, sharing your screen with them, showing them Annie Beach's kids or some other kids that are really inspirational. There's a great video of Ricky Skaggs when he was 7 playing with Earl Scruggs. And you can find some really great music in every genre with kids who are doing really cool things, and that might be something you're interested in.
Yeah, I think kids inspire other kids, you know. Since we can't use the, you know, Marcy looks like a 12-year-old anymore, I just use the, hey, I'm 67. If I can do this, you can do this, you know. I'll use whatever it takes, you know. Hey, I'm going to jump more times than you're going to jump. And then we're all jumping for 10 minutes, and then we're all focused again. And
we call the chiropractor?
Never. Not for me. All right. Well, folks, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, we have a practice session if you want to join it. There are 2 practice sessions, and Jamie can get you the link for both of them. One of them is Saturday at 11 for an hour. And anybody who wants to can, you know, pull out an instrument and do a mock 5 minutes of a lesson and push the buttons and see how it works and get a little bit of feedback. There's one Saturday at 11 o'clock, and there's one next Wednesday at 2:30. Our email is in your chat. Most importantly, now's the time to click on those 3 little buttons at the bottom and save chat. And it probably doesn't save until after you leave the meeting, and then it'll save into some special little box on your computer. And if you don't label that box and you don't label the file, you'll always wonder where it went. And we're really happy to have been able to spend this time with you. Hope it's helpful. Hope it helps you succeed as Zoom teachers in this otherwise bizarre time that we're living in and trying to help other people's lives in. So thank you all for joining.
And thank you for
Jamie.
doing this work and keeping the music going with the kids. It's wonderful.
Thanks to Jamie. Thanks to Brett. And don't hesitate to be in touch with us.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
y'all.
And we've saved the chat and recorded the session, so you'll get that information to follow up too.
Great.
Oh, that's great, Jamie.
Thanks. Save chat and leave. Okay, everybody. Have a safe and
Bye.
happy time.